Tonight, 2 additional COVID-19 related deaths and 82 new cases recorded on the island in the last 24 hours, taking the total of deaths to 128 and cases to 7,273. PAHO concerned that some Caribbean countries that were managing COVID-19 are now experiencing spikes in the virus, including Cuba and Jamaica. Still tonight, Minister of Health and Wellness urges community leaders in Hanover to play a role in the fight against COVID-19.
It's so important that all of us as critical stakeholders, as a society, but the key influencers, that we understand what it means, but also define a role for ourselves in how we address the community transmission phase in this COVID fight.
And Central Kingston MP Donovan Williams concerned about the increase of shooting incidents in the constituency.
Given the exponential increase in shootings and drive-bys, I think that more police presence is needed.
Good evening. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has reported that Jamaica recorded 2 additional COVID-19 related deaths and 82 new cases in the last 24 hours. Now, this takes the total of COVID-19 related deaths on the island to 128 and the total of positive cases on record to 7,273. The deceased are a 59-year-old female from St. Elizabeth and an 82-year-old male from Westmoreland whose case was previously under investigation. There was also the coincidental death of a 56-year-old female COVID-19 patient from St. Catherine. Now, of the newly confirmed cases, 50 are females and 32 are males, ranging in age from 3 to 96 years. The cases were recorded in St. James with 24, Kingston and St. Andrew 22. St. Catherine has recorded 10 cases, St. Elizabeth 7, Manchester 5, St. Anne, Clarendon and Westmoreland 3 cases each, Trelawney 2 cases and St. Mary, St. Thomas and Portland 1 case each. There are 28 moderately ill and 12 critically ill patients among the 4,315 active cases now under observation in Jamaica. Total recoveries increased by 32, taking the total of recovered persons to 2,732. Still making news tonight, the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, says it is concerned that some Caribbean countries that were managing COVID-19 are now experiencing spikes in the virus. Cuba and Jamaica were identified as 2 such countries. Now, to date, Cuba has recorded a total of 5,917 cases, and Jamaica has recorded 7,273. Now, Director of PAHO, Dr. Carissa Etienne, said, and I quote, "We are concerned about spikes in cases, including in places which had effectively managed outbreaks like Cuba and Jamaica," end quote. Dr. Etienne, who provided these updates at a PAHO media briefing yesterday, said over the last 60 days, 11 countries and territories in the Caribbean have moved from moderate to intense transmission. She noted that this is a concerning development as countries reopen their airspaces. The PAHO director stated transmission remains very active in the region as a whole, as some countries are suffering recurrent spikes in cases. Still making news tonight, Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton urged community leaders in Hanover today to play a role in the fight against COVID-19 during this phase of community transmission. More on this story with Tamara McHale.
Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton during this week's visit in Western Jamaica to meet with community leaders and conduct public education and community engagement met with Western Jamaica community leaders at the Noel Holmes Hospital Conference Room in Hanover earlier today. Dr. Tufton implored everyone, especially key influencers, to not just understand what community transmission means, but also define a role for themselves in how they address the community transmission phase in the COVID-19 fight.
We always anticipated that we were going to get to a stage, as defined by the World Health Organization, that is called the community transmission phase. For us in Jamaica, the community transmission phase means that we have to adjust the strategy around how we manage the virus to protect the population. And in the first instance, we have to understand what it means. The very basic definition of community transmission is that the virus now is at a state of spread where it is difficult to trace its origin. And that's what community transmission means. It means people are coming into the hospitals and health centers with the virus. You can't immediately trace where they've gotten it from. It means that persons are moving around asymptomatic with the virus. They could be in your home, they could be at your work, they could be on the streets, they could be at church, they could be at funeral, wherever. In the hospitals, right here in this room, there may be some of us with the virus. And so if you assume that once the declaration of community transmission is made, then it means that certain things have to be put in place to control and to manage it. And that's the phase that we're in, and that's why we have been repeating some of the protocols, but also adding additional protocols to deal with community transmission.
Dr. Tufton also explained why the health protocols in the transmission phase are key in reducing the risk of the spread of COVID-19.
Protocols in the community transmission phase are very important because protocols really prescribes a behavior in a particular environment. There are some universal principles that no matter which environment you're in, you should adopt, and there are some variations depending on particular environments around these protocols and how they are defined. So the universal ones are obvious because we speak about it every day. It's about wearing the masks when you're in public spaces. It's about the 6 feet distancing. It's around the sanitization of your hand and so on. That's kind of universal, and we keep repeating that every day, and we're hoping that Jamaicans will come to terms with it. A lot of Jamaicans are doing it, some are not, to their detriment and to the detriment of others. In the community transmission phase, we can't be as rigid as we used to be in terms of restrictions, because if you were to shut down your business every time you find a positive case in the business may be shut for a very long time. And this is a phase when you have to balance the management of the virus with the need for persons to access services and for persons to work.
He further explained the importance of safeguarding those that are at high risk to the virus.
Now, in protecting the vulnerable, we also have to ensure that the young and energetic and healthy also recognize that they have an important role to play, because they may not die from the virus, but they can be big spreaders of the virus. So they may just have a common cold, but they will take it home to their mothers and grandmothers, and they will have a big problem, which is one of the reasons why schools are not yet back in session, because children, while not seen as a risky cohort for the virus to damage them personally, are seen as super spreaders of the virus, as other jurisdictions have shown, because they are not as observant to some of the basic protocols of hand washing. Children are children. No matter how much you drill in them, they will always be playing and enjoying themselves. So I make the point to say a big part of the management of the community transmission phase is how you protect the vulnerable, how you identify them, protect them, and we all have a role to play in that regard.
Following the meeting, Dr. Tufton carried out a COVID-19 educational walk in the town of Lucy, where he and a team of community health aides handed out masks and hand sanitizers while talking with residents. For MELLO TV News, I am Tamar McHale.
In a MELLO TV news update, the St. James Health Department has confirmed that it has ordered the closure of a Montego Bay-based free zone call center after it was found in breach of the COVID-19 protocols. Yesterday, dozens of employees at the Teleperformance Center, formerly known as Alliance One, were sent home with short notice after being informed that the facility was being closed for deep cleaning. Now, this situation arose after an employee reportedly turned up for work on Tuesday with a high fever and flu-like symptoms, which are symptoms of COVID-19. Meanwhile, reports from the health department state that the facility has been ordered closed until it is fully convinced that the call center is operating under the guidelines of the COVID-19 requirements. Teleperformance Center in a statement says it has passed every public health inspection performed by the Ministry of Health, including yesterday's inspection. It further stated that it had provided their team members with tentative start time to return to work following the sanitization and inspection exercise, but unfortunately, the process took slightly longer than expected. Now, this delay caused team members to have to wait outside the gates of the Montego Bay Free Zone for a while. In other news tonight, Jamaicans who are battling mental health challenges or who could face such challenges as a result of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic are to benefit from a government intervention program that will cost $20 million. As part of the initiative, members of the public experiencing anxiety or other mental health issues are being urged to access mental health support services by calling the Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Helpline at 888-NEW-LIFE, that is 888-639-5433. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton made the announcement this week. Dubbed the COVID-19 Mental Health Response Program, this initiative aims to, among other things, mitigate the progression of mental health issues that have or are otherwise anticipated to emerge resulting from COVID-19. Now, the minister explained that the intention is to provide community-based support, creating ease of access to mental health services through community engagement and mass media education. This in order to promote mental health and prevent mental illness. This strategy integrates all socio-economic groups within the society, using all media to reach, engage, and support the most vulnerable. Dr. Tufton added that the Health Ministry will also provide what he calls neighborly check-ins and special transport services for the elderly. In news from the capital, Member of Parliament for Central Kingston, Donovan Williams, has expressed great concern about the increase in shooting incidents taking place in the constituency. More on this story with Tamara McHale.
Central Kingston Member of Parliament Donovan Williams says shootings in the constituency are of great cause for concern. Mr. Williams, who was visiting residents in the Franklin Town community yesterday, says a lot of drive-by shootings have been happening since the general election.
There have been several shootings in recent times in the constituency, and so I'm here to dialogue with the citizens and the residents to find out exactly what is happening. We're trying to get to the bottom of this. We intend also to dialogue with the police, which has jurisdiction over here, to ascertain what is happening. But my understanding is that since election day, that a lot of shootings and drive-bys have been taking place here. The sad fact, though, is that a lot of innocent people, I mean, every life is important, but there are innocent people who are not aligned to any gangs or aligned to any particular political party, just going about their day-to-day business, and they are becoming victims. You know, when you run down a 61-year-old or a 60-year-old man who's going about his business, has nothing to do with anything, and you shot him, I mean, this is just unacceptable. It's callous. Somehow, Kingston Central, on both sides, on South Side, and in Franklin Town, in Alman Town, there just seems to be this exponential increase of shootings and drive-bys.
Mr. Williams also explained that several of the shootings are allegedly politically linked.
To be truthful, you know, several of my of my supporters are being shot up. And a lot of having analyzed where some of these drive-bys, most, if not all of these drive-bys occur, they are in strong areas, strong JLP areas. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't be coincidental, but I'm just saying when I analyze what is happening, it is cause for concern. And I've been hearing things on the ground from residents, which, you know, I intend to take up with the police high command and the police in this jurisdiction.
He says he is calling on the security forces to help get a hold of what's happening in the constituency.
Given the exponential increase in shootings and drive-bys, I think that more police presence is needed. I think the police need to have some foot patrols, to establish some stations, some buffer zones, because, for example, in Franklin Town, my understanding and my analysis is that it is between bottom, there's some issue between Kirk site and some issue with Top Road in Franklin Town, and that is escalating into drive-bys and shootings. Now, why can't we establish a buffer zone between these two areas or these two communities? You know, the citizens are crying out. So we have to get a hold of this.
For MELLO TV News, I am Tamara McHale.
Now our news team also visited the community and spoke with some residents who had this to say.
For years. And we have prayed for it can stop you now. You know, 'cause a lot of innocent people are losing their life. You know, shot people scared. No business, as you can say, everything locked down.
Yeah.
You see, the place is a ghost town.
All them shops used to open?
Yeah, man. A printing place, this, a business place.
Used to open and locked
yeah,
down?
man. See, yeah, so it used to be a crowded spot.
The war has been.
It's no nice. I run more, I run, I pack up and run away.
Why is that?
Because them places are enough for go boy picnic. Enough night when you hear the shot, them you have to go on there, bed go lie down. Because you know it's straight shot to the picture.
So on their bed you sleep most of the time?
Most of the time. Because shot. And upon the main we live. So you don't know anything can happen.
So the kids them traumatized?
Traumatized. Because my son witnessed the shooting of one Sunday. Traumatized. He cried the whole night, him not sleep.
Nothing can get for one. People are afraid. The rest of the out you can't hear, so we all have the gun shooting them going, nothing can get for one. Yeah. No, and then this is about we have to come together as a community, and them not a unity. Them not a unity because you know them go kill and then them come kill innocent and it not stop. And so we need number one, we need God intervention. And so the people them, the Christian people them God call forth, we need to come out as prayer warriors and pray for our community.
Then feel afraid. We need it to stop right now too. You know, the youth need to curve it and somebody need to curve it.
In news from Hanover, the Lucy police have charged an 18-year-old resident of the parish with the September 20 murder of 37-year-old Gregory Grant, otherwise called Bodcat, of Ken Jones District, Cocoon Castle. Devontae Rose, otherwise called Teddy of Back Street, also in Cocoon Castle, was charged today. A date for his court hearing has not yet been finalized. Now, the police say at about 10:50 p.m. on September 20, Grant and Rose were at a candle-lighting event when an argument developed between them. Rose allegedly used a knife to stab Grant to his upper body. Mr. Grant was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Rose was subsequently arrested. Continuing with the news, Minister of Education Favour Williams announced on Tuesday that the provisions for psychosocial support for students tackling the rigors of virtual learning for the first time was a priority for her administration. Now, the Education Minister explained that the new school term, which saw students engaged in classes from their homes and receiving the teaching and learning experience in a number of different approaches, such as online by audio, visually by television, cable network, and radio, and with the ministry's learning kit and textbooks, has dictated a new approach. She said the ministry directed the schools to make the priority for yesterday, today and tomorrow the psychosocial support for our children. Schools were also directed not to rush back into subject lessons right away on day one, and principals and teachers were asked to develop psychosocial sessions to ensure that the students were in the right state of mind. According to the Education Minister, based upon the updated figures she received, every student on the PATH program in grades 4, 5 and 6 will be able to get a tablet. And those were the stories making news. I'm Shelley Hill. We'll now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.